Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Zach. Here we talk about overlanding, gear, builds, DIY, all sorts of stuff related to modifying your vehicle, getting out there, adventuring in the outdoors. Today we're going to be talking about a sort of creature comfort modification. You've maybe seen some of the other head unit videos out there on YouTube, and this one will be sort of similar. If you want to check out my Desate to head unit video, I'll have that linked up above here. But this head unit is roughly twice the size of the Desate to head unit. Absolutely massive. Some would call kind of like a Tesla styled head unit. But yeah, this basically replaces your entire center console, media console area with a big screen. So first we're gonna do sort of an unboxing, then I'll go through the install process, and then I'll show you a little bit of the interface on there and some of my thoughts towards the end on kind of what I thought about this head unit. So thank you so much for supporting the channel. If you could like and subscribe, that really helps me out, helps me be able to grow my channel. And if you're interested in buying a patch, I'll have this patch linked down below. And yeah, I appreciate you supporting. If you are into patches, you can go snag one. So thank you so much for supporting me, and let's jump right into the unboxing. All right, so I just want to show you all this new head unit that was just sent to me. I want to check it out. I think it could be a Desate replacement. We'll have to see. It's a really nice looking head unit, kind of on the box here. We've been trying to figure out kind of how to get this sorted. This one is a 4Runner head unit, so you can see here on the side it says 4Runner. And yeah, we're just gonna do a quick unboxing, see what comes in the packaging, and then check it out. I'm not quite sure what the quality is gonna be like, but we're gonna dig into it. So this one, the claim to fame for it is that it is a Tesla style head unit. So if you're unfamiliar with what that means, basically it's like your whole dash turns into a screen. There's been a couple of these made by other manufacturers, but this is a completely different one. It's got dual climate control support. So if your rig has dual climate control, then it should work. But check this out. How clean is that? That is a massive screen. Pretty nuts. So, and the version that I opted for was the all blacked out version. So all of this is all blacked out. So this is kind of interesting when I'm carrying it and moving it around. Kind of hear that squeaking noise. I'm a little worried about that. Interesting, so there's volume buttons instead of a volume knob. I think these are only for climate control temperatures. And then inside here, I think we just have a bunch of different adapter cables for all of the different head unit plugs. I've got some pictures. So this is really nice. I have never seen a Amazon head unit or whatever like this, something you purchase made overseas that has this in-depth of an install guide, which I really like. So, and it shows like plugging everything in laid out like this. That's pretty awesome.
All right, so before we get started with this install, just want to show you this little magnetic light I have. I use this all the time, so if you've been watching the channel and you haven't seen that light before, I'm shocked. I'll link it down below. It's pretty awesome. So I'm going to do my best to film basically removing the dash stuff here so that we can swap some things over. I'm debating whether I'm going to install my Rago Fabrication dash mount on the new head unit or not, just because I want to test it first before I install it. But we'll see. Maybe I'll do that. So right now, what we just got to do is we got to remove the two shifter knobs first. So basically unscrew these all the way. Got those removed. Okay, so now this area in the middle here is held in with a couple clips. So all you got to do is pull up. There we go. Don't love doing that just because it feels like I'm gonna break something, but it's what you gotta do to get the clips out. So remove this. And if I flip this around, you can kind of see these are the yellow clips that hold this all in. There's a ton of them. Every time I take it out, I seem to lose a couple because they pop off. Like here's one. See if we'll put that up here. This cup holder sometimes gets a little loose if you get a thermos of some kind jammed in there. Okay, so set that aside. What I did that you probably noticed, maybe not, is there's a little white harness right down here for the seat heaters and the rear window, so I unplugged that. Now this is all exposed. So next thing you could do is you could shift your car into a different gear if you want this more out of the way, but you really don't need to. Next, we're gonna grab right by these knobs. They're just held in with clips as well. Pop this out. 4 clips, top and bottom. Reach behind here, there's also a harness, just this one right here. You can set this aside as well. Now, I don't think we're actually gonna need to remove this at all to install the new one. So I'm just going to leave this set aside for now. We're gonna take out the head unit. So, got my little trusty drill here. Shout out to Harbor Freight. So now all we're gonna do is remove these 4 bolts right in here. I've got a 6-inch extension and a 10mm. I'll try to stay out of the way, but I gotta see what I'm doing first. You could just as easily do this with just a normal socket wrench, but since I got the drill handy, it saves me some time. So this little thing right here can be kind of sketchy, so I try to put like a glove over it or something, because otherwise when you lift stuff off, now there's a couple clips that hold the head unit in on the top. So now I can fold it down like this and just start unplugging all the wires back here. So that's basically all I'm gonna do now, is just unplug tons of harnesses. The nice thing is almost every single harness back here is unique, so you're not gonna really have a problem plugging a harness from one thing into another thing and it being incorrect.
All right, so now that we've got the head unit out of the car, I'm just gonna show you kind of here what we got going on. So this is some of the old foam from the head unit when it was delivered, and what I like to do is repurpose it so that you're not scratching screens and stuff. So just rip it apart a bit here. This one's awesome because it's cut out for the knobs. You can see that here. So what I do is I just leave it nice and tidy, just like that inside of there. Now what we're gonna do is, you can see here we've got all of these vents and other stuff. We've got the plug that's been rerouted right here for the hazards button. So all this stuff we basically got to pull off of the old one, put on the new one. So the interesting thing here too is the plastic on this one is thicker than the plastic on this one. So I'll be curious to see if we can actually mount up the Rago Fabrication dash mount or not, but we'll kind of find out. So first off, what I'm going to do is remove these brackets on the sides here, because I think we're going to need to use them. Not quite sure. Oh, maybe not actually. So, oh, maybe they don't actually use those. Well, there's all these little clips. So I'm wondering if we just remove these clips and it works just fine that way. So these brackets right here, they would go, right under the vents. So like right up here, but we've got these parts of it there. And that's it. Let's first move the vents over and take off this dash mount on the top here. And then we'll see if we need to move these brackets, but these brackets might not be necessary on the new one. So I'm gonna pop off all these little plastic clips and move them over. Try to not break them. pop right off. All right, so this is the Rago Fabrication dash mount. I've been running it for a long time. I've got this little magnetic mount right here, and it comes with this little ball connection right there. This is then some RAM mounts that I bought, and then I just deleted the factory one and used this little adapter ball. Works pretty awesome, so I love this setup. Set this aside though for now. Let's keep working. Okay, so now we've got the whole dash mount off of this head unit, which means now we can start taking out these vents and the, whatever you call it, the hazards button. So let's go ahead and start working on that. Trying to remember, but basically, if you look underneath here, there's some clips at the bottom. All you gotta do is pop those clips out and these vents come out. So they're not held in by much, if I remember. Didn't do too much damage to this little bit of felt here. But there's little tabs, this one right here, see that? Tab there, tab there. Same with on the other side. So they latch in, if you look on the actual unit, they latch in right here, 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 and here. So those are the main tabs you really got to pull back, but there's also ones on the bottom and the top. So they're kind of everywhere. Fortunately, there's not just like two little bolts to pull, but we got it out. So now we can just take it over to the new one, pop it right in. So trying to remember exactly how this switch works, but I think what we do is unplug the harness and then push that through. That pops through just like that. It's got these little tabs on the bottom and the top. Come over to the new unit, push it through. Got our button out and the two vents. So now let's slide this to the side here. I'll bring this to front and center so I can show you all in a little bit better angle here. So before we do the vents, this button just pushes through from this direction. I will say feels a little loose in there, so yeah, should hold okay though. I'm not too worried. All right, so now we've got these vents. They've got a little hole here on the top for a guide. So all we got to do is pop those in. Hear that nice satisfying click. We should be good to go. I just like to make sure everything is oriented correctly before we push it all on. Save yourself some work popping those clips in and out, because there's always a little bit of work to, you know, get those fixed if you really need to reclip them back out. Okay, so we've got these clips all in here. We've got the vents, we've got the plug. Now what we need to do is pull the harness from the old system here. Take this over here, plug it in, just let it lay there. As for everything else on here, I don't think you really need any of this. So this is your GPS. This is your microphone. I've got a microphone already in my car, so I'm gonna just use the one that's currently there. This one is important. Figure out where all these things plug in, but this is all your adapters for basically everything. One thing I will say that I really commend them for is this little book they've sent with is like actually a helpful instruction install manual. I've just done these installs enough times that like it doesn't really take me a lot to know kind of what to start with, but now I'm gonna just make sure I plug in all the right harnesses here. So they've got everything nicely labeled and then which ports to plug them in. So, all right, I'm gonna try and talk through everything I've been learning here. So this right here is the reverse camera, and what you can see here is we've got a video plug and then we've got some sort of harness plug here. So these two look to have the exact same harness except for this white like adapter plug. And so you'll just have to look to see probably which one of these we need to use. They don't necessarily state which is which, but you can also notice that there is another harness kind of similar that's got these blue and green cables as well. They say this is for 2010 to 2013s. So I won't need that. My guess is one of these is for 2014 to 2019 and one is for like 2020 plus or something. So that's what these two plugs are for. I've just been slowly going through all of the harnesses, figuring out where and what goes where. So right here we've got just some USB adapters because one of my plugs in the 4Runner, I believe, will plug into this, and then it should plug into this USB, and then that will plug into one of these USB ports. So that's my understanding with that. This blue plug is if you have like extra speakers and a subwoofer. I believe this is for the subwoofer feed. You can plug this blue cable right in there, and then you've got connectors for that. So this one up top, that's for the sim, this little plug here that I'm not going to be using. So I set that aside. 2013 harness, set that aside. All right, so it would appear that this right here is for basically our climate controls. So this is the little adapter for that. Got like a pink and a purple and a black wire. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take that, and that plugs in right down here. And then on this massive harness here, we've got this large white plug here. That is going to plug in to this. Most of these, they can really only be plugged in one way due to how the clip hooks on. So just be gentle with it. These should go to stock plugs, and then the rest of these as well. All right, so like I kind of was talking about with this one, this is a green and white wire. In the instructions it says green and blue, but maybe they just use different colors this time. I'm not exactly sure. But this is for the OBD2 cable, which is right here. And so this one, I believe, we plug in, and there's only one orientation because of the clip, so that helps. So we've got this plugged in. This, I believe, we're going to route and plug into our OBD2 port, because my guess is this head unit might be able to like show you, you know, different things about the car because it's plugged into the OBD2. So that's pretty sweet. I kind of wish there was like an OBD2 splitter so that you could still plug in like something else, but we'll see. Maybe there is and I'm missing it. But so I'll lay this out to the side as well and keep on slowly, you know, going through this stuff. Okay, so I figured this out. So these two, they've got red and white plugs for each dedicated, and depending upon which one of these you plug into one of the stock harnesses, you then take these red and white plugs and plug them in to these two up on the auxiliary video or whatever plug up at the top here, which I think is harness 13. So these two plugs, you know, we don't really need to pay too much attention to until we get into the vehicle. And I think that's the remainder of the harnesses in here. I'm still trying to figure out where this black and purple plug will plug into. But I'm wondering if maybe it doesn't need to plug into anything. It's like a bypass or something. So almost there. We should be able to run out to the vehicle soon. But yeah, just trying to make sure I get all this plugged in, and doing it at the bench is so much easier than doing it in the car. Okay, I just figured it out. So if your vehicle is a 2014 to 2019, you won't use this little plug, but if it's a 2010 to 2013, this is what you will plug into your JBL amplifier, I believe. So for now, I'm just gonna leave this unplugged. And I think we got all the cables good to go. So now we can run out to the vehicle and probably start installing this. The last thing I'm just trying to figure out is if there's any preparatory work I could do to make installing my dash mount easier. One thing I did remember is on the top of the head unit here, we've got this little black plastic insert, and we've got to pull that off of here to use on the new one. So there's a lot of opportunity to use power tools when working on your vehicle, but I've always found that like half the time when people use power tools, they tend to break stuff, or they cross thread things, or it just doesn't work out the way that you would hope. So I typically don't use power tools unless it's like a bolt that is really strong. I'll sometimes use them on accident and then regret it later, but I try to use manual tools whenever I can. One thing I will say is I actually don't think I'm gonna be able to run a front camera with this setup, so that's a little bit of a bummer. I'm sure you could always just do the anytime backup camera modification to run with this, so that you could have that back. But I'll do the full install here and we'll see, maybe there's an opportunity to plug that in somewhere that I'm not aware of. So this is a little adapter here. I think this would be used for the 2010-2013 one. So it's got the two plugs here. I think this is what would plug into the AC controls. So that plugs in just like that. But I'm just not even gonna put this in the vehicle because it just takes up space. So all we're gonna do now is carry this back out to the vehicle and start installing it. This is the other backup camera adapter here in case we need it, but we should be good to go. Note that 1B, 2B, 7A will connect to 13A. This is 13A. But again, we might need to swap that harness if I don't have the correct one. And also just remove these little plastic covers. So we got this plugged in here. These need to be plugged into the corresponding. And this green one, I don't think we're gonna use. I'm not sure what it's for, but I don't think we're gonna use it. So this appears to be the adapter that I'm using for some reason. This is how mine is in my car, and so I'm not quite sure if that, I think this is the 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24. So this is the 24 pin version plug. So I guess 24 pin might be for 2014, 2019. Or maybe this is just for the 2015, I'm not sure, but this is the one we got to use. So I'm going to quick pop this in the head unit before we jump in the car. Alright, so now this just becomes a game of plugging everything in and trying not to lose anything. Unfortunately, I'm going to just block the bulk of your view for this whole entire install, but I'll do what I can to not get in the way. Alright. For now, just got this routed under there, tilted up just like that. So here's our little plug. We're gonna plug this back into there. I think we're not gonna even use one of these, but one of them will plug into this USB. It's kind of a gray harness. There we go. I don't know why that plugged in so hard, but it did. This is the little microphone plug. Grab that. Our little plug here for the reverse camera, I believe. So I don't have a place to plug in this one, and it's got a red and white on it, so I'm gonna not plug in those red and whites. This red and white plug, I'm going to plug into the corresponding colors on the 13 harness. So just plug those in here, just like that. Alright, so I think we have everything plugged in. So before I do anything too crazy here, I want to just turn the car on and see what happens. So let's see if we can kind of prop this up here. All right, screen's on. Screen's booting up here. Go home. Showing these two doors are open here. Clock is on, so that's weird. Okay. Nice. All right, I think we might have everything basically done here.
Welcome, Master. Welcome, Master.
Well, trying to figure out how to turn that off because that's kind of weird. Go to home here. Screen's really responsive, so that's pretty cool.
yeah, I think what we'll do here is we've got car auto, video, music, radio, navigation. Go radio. Let's just try FM here. And then presume we can.
Number 1, hippie station with Derek in Plymouth. I know you're not having a good time right now.
Oh my god,
Okay, well, we'll leave that off to not get copyrighted. This is pretty sweet. Dang, I like this. Alright, so it's responsive when I touch the screen. These are the climate controls. Unfortunately, awesome too. Like when you turn it to colder, it turns blue, and when you turn it hotter, it turns red. So that's awesome. Actually mount up my dash mount here too, because I'm really liking how this looks so far. I don't think I'll go back to my Desata. I was just mainly worried about the screen, and so far it's working all right, so I'm kind of pretty stoked for that. Looks like you can also maybe adjust your temperatures on the screen here. So car auto. There. All right. Nice. So we've got some stuff down here. We've got the maps up here, and we've got climate controls here at the bottom. You can click this little thing. Apple CarPlay is always a little bit laggy using this emulator, and very nice. Okay, so we got Apple CarPlay to work here. It looks like there's no like built-in navigation to where, you know, you'd have like it solely based on GPS. So that's a little interesting, but maybe I'm just using it wrong. Alright, so now basically what we have to finish doing here is I got those 4 bolts mounted up on the dash mount. This dash mount's kind of tricky to install, but got it all sorted. You can grab our little ram ball here and get this mounted up, I suppose. Doesn't really matter what order we're going to do any of this in, but we'll get it quick mounted up here, just like so. We can get our little arm bracket set back up as well for the Midland radio. My little port down here for my Midland radio I just pulled out so I can still plug it in. I'm going to have to maybe figure out something new for that. And then we've got our 2 little side panel pieces here that I pulled off of my old controls. I just got to figure out how to get these to pop in correctly. This one, same thing over here. Get it all lined up. Just like this.
remember to plug in your seat heaters, just like that. Okay. And this will just kind of line up with everything and pop it right down. Shouldn't be. Just like that. Some nice satisfying clicks and pops. There we go. Should be all good to go and set up. Grab my key, just start up the car again here. So the AC controls are kind of like way down there. Once you got everything sort of set up here. It might be nice to have an anti-glare screen set up. There you are. So, I guess we can pull off this.
Welcome, Master. Welcome, Master.
Okay. The viewing angles are a lot better without the screen protector on and my big light bar turned off. So, wow, that's pretty cool actually. I like that. I'll kind of test it out over the next couple days, see if there's any weird quirks or something. But overall, so far, looks pretty sharp. So if we here turn on the AC, guess we got to turn on the fans, just like that. And you can also use these buttons. So it's kind of cool, I guess, as you can use these buttons up here to control it, rather than using the touchscreen down there. This is our volume. Let's see if our volume on our... that works as well on the steering wheel. You skip songs. Yep. Okay. And then typically this talking button is your mute button. Nice. Alright, I think we've got everything sorted here. Well, I'd say that's a wrap for the install.
Alright, well, I just want to show you all kind of my thoughts after using this for a little while now. So it runs Apple CarPlay perfectly fine. I haven't had any issues with Apple CarPlay running. Their emulator seems to be just fine. The touchscreen is really responsive. I haven't had any problems with it. It feels probably better than the Desata head unit, honestly, as far as touch response. It feels a lot more like using an iPad. I've always loved Apple's touchscreens because I've always felt like they were really nice. This one feels really nice. I also love that they've got these animations, so when you turn it to go hot, it turns red, and when you turn it to go cold, it turns blue. I think that's a really nice touch. If you have a limited or some of the newer TRD Pros, I think, I don't know exactly which trim levels have it, but if you have dual climate control, I believe these will be separate, and then they show the temperature it's set at, which I think also is just a really nice luxury. The other thing that you can do is you can quickly adjust all the temperature controls up here with these buttons. One thing that I've found myself missing was the volume control. I do typically adjust the volume control on my steering wheel, but essentially I would reach for the volume knob on occasion. And I think this is mainly because I had that on the Desata head unit and it was just force of habit. I think this is something that you could get used to. Another thing that I really liked about this head unit was the fact that Apple CarPlay is a lot larger portion of the screen. So when you turn on Apple CarPlay, the like top, almost 60% of the screen is just the map alone. So I really like this. Some of the things that I didn't like as much though was, I don't know if I'm just not used to it or not, but the audio or sound coming from this head unit sounds a little bit on the like concert hall style. Like no matter what I did in sort of adjusting the amplifier, it always sounded a bit like there was a small echo in the in the audio. So I don't really know. I know a ton of people complain about 4Runners in general not having very nice sound systems, and I don't have the JBL sound system, so I'm not really sure if I'm just like outing the fact that my sound system is horrible and the amplifier in this is fine, or the digital amplifier in here is decent. But what I've noticed was basically the sound was okay, but I think the Desata head unit might have had a slightly better sound. And maybe that was just to me tuning it or not, but I never felt like I could get them to be absolutely equivalent. The last thing I guess I would say is, this is really impossible to do, but if you look, like, we have all of the vents up top. We've got our hazards light button in the middle, like the clock. Everything works just like normal. And this has probably got to be almost the biggest screen you can put in here to still operate your four-wheel drive knob and everything. But I found that it was like almost too big. The nice thing with the Desata head unit and the manual controls is they're from like this spot and up. And I kind of liked being able to, you know, glance quickly at the screen and then glance up. So if they had like a software override where you could flip the like temperature and, you know, cooling controls up to the top and then put the CarPlay on the bottom, like maybe that would solve that. But then, you know, then you're going to just be looking at the Apple CarPlay stuff down low, and your controls for the temperature stuff will be up top. So maybe this is me just being sort of old-fashioned and it's not a huge deal, but I just like to typically keep my eyes on the road. And so I found like if I ever had to reach down and adjust the temperature controls on the screen, it was a little distracting. So I tried to get pretty good at using these buttons up top here. So those are some of the small things that I just kind of, you know, initially thought of. The fit and finish though of this is really clean. It gives off a very high-end look to the vehicle. I don't think it looks out of place. It you know, blends well with all of the black plastics that I have in the 4Runner already. And so, you know, I've had a couple of friends ride in the rig, and it's a showstopper the moment they get in the vehicle. It looks really good. And so, yeah, I mean, over stock, I'm sure this is going to be an absolutely insane upgrade to what you already have. The audio thing there may be a little different because everyone has their own personal preference, but I do know that this is probably going to be a nice, you know, creature comfort upgrade over the stock head units from especially the 2010 to 2019 times for 4Runners where you didn't have Apple CarPlay on the stock head unit. If you have like a Desata head unit or like a T10 head unit, changing to this, you're just going to have to decide if your priorities are there for switching over. This does have the ability to add like a SIM card, and I think you can set up like different video features and some of the online stuff and almost treat this like a tablet. And so there may be some additional functionality there that would be of interest to you, but that wasn't necessarily a priority for me. So hopefully this was helpful for you all, just to kind of show off this new head unit here. And I'm probably going to continue to test it out for a little while and just see how I like it and whether I want to continue to run it long term. But yeah, wanted to show you all kind of this as an option out there. And if you thought that the Desata or T10 head units weren't a big enough head unit for you, then, you know, I think this is the next step in size up. So if they had an option where you could route the vents to be on the sides here or something and raise up this screen to like this high, or I don't know what legally would be allowed or whatever, but if you could just lift the screen up higher and preserve all this little stuff down here, that could be really cool too, since I have my custom 6-switch rocker system at the very bottom. But who knows, maybe they're working on it right now and I'm not aware. But for now, using all the stock locations, you know, those are kind of my thoughts on using this. So obviously it's been compatible with some of the other accessories on the market right now, so yeah, it's not like you're going to be changing your whole entire interior setup to run this head unit. So let me know if you got any questions down below, but that's going to be it for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you all in the next video.